Hi, welcome to Chi for Yourself. Great to have you with us wherever you are in the world today. This show is all about the good chi, the essential energy, and the maintenance of a genuine life. If you're like a lot of folks clearing out the household clutter around this time of the year, you might also want to give some thought to parting with some of your non-productive thoughts, the thoughts you've been storing inside maybe for a long, long time. The stuff that makes up your conversation with yourself just might be holding you back in life. Our guest today brings with her a story of mindfulness played out each and every day. Pollys Campbell is the author of Imperfect Spirituality, Extraordinary Enlightenment, or Enlightenment for Ordinary People, I should say. She is a contributor to Psychology Today, the Daily Ohm, and the Huffington Post. And we're happy to welcome Pollys Campbell to Chi for Yourself. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You have a very personal account here in the pages of this book. Obviously, there's lots of helpful information, but you put a lot of yourself into the book. Talk about the lead up to the writing of the book and what your life was like in those days and weeks beforehand.
Yeah, I do put a lot of myself in the book because this is my life too, and the things I write about are the practices that I also do to live better in the moment and to ease my stress. And so I want to be authentic and share my experience with people. I have always been interested in personal development, and I've been a writer for my entire professional career, so 20 years or so. And those two things have kind of come together. I write magazine articles about different strategies and spirituality and so forth. And I have been practicing this stuff since I was a little kid. I first became in tune with this notion that you could create your life from the thoughts you were having when I was a child. I was diagnosed very young with rheumatoid arthritis, and my body wasn't working like others were. And so I needed to find another way, and I really learned, how to think about it and how to choose belief systems and structures that would support me in my growth. And all that worked well. As I grew, I began meditating and contemplation, visualization, all these things, until I didn't. About 6 years ago, I faced a series of transitions, and it was precipitated by the birth of our daughter. When she was born, I decided to stay at home and work less, which was a huge transition for me. It changed our finances. It changed my relationship with my husband. It changed who I knew myself to be if I wasn't writing anymore. And at that same time, I was diagnosed with melanoma, which is a scary form of skin cancer. All cancer can be scary, but this is not a good one to have. And I just kind of fell apart. I was angry and dissatisfied and blaming, and I felt like nothing was working, that I couldn't measure up. I was failing as a mother, my health was failing, I was failing in my relationship, and I just felt like I couldn't figure it out until I realized that maybe the way I was doing it was okay. Maybe there was nothing to figure out, and maybe what I needed to do was reconnect with those things I had done my entire life. Because when our daughter was born, I stopped meditating. I stopped some of the practices that had grounded me. Because by the end of the day, I just wanted a glass of wine and a shower. I mean, I was wiped out by having a baby in the house. So when I realized I needed to reconnect to my inner energy, that essence, that spirit, whatever it is for you, I began developing the practices I've used my whole life in a more practical way. So I began to meditate in the shower, and I would practice mindfulness while changing the diapers or doing the dishes, and I would take a pause in the car before rushing out to the doctor, just ground myself in the moment. And I felt better right away, and I had more clarity, and I had more peace, and I had better health. And fortunately, my health is fine now. They were able to successfully treat it, and my daughter is 6, and my profession is going well, and my marriage is fine, and all those things came back together once I regrounded in that energy that you talked about, John, that chi energy. It's such a powerful force, and we need to return to that place in ourselves when things start to go haywire.
Now, I know listeners and readers can identify with this when you're doing this kind of work. What kind of noise are you hearing, let's call it ego chatter, during the process that brings so much resistance?
Yeah, my ego was loud. I was a messy, incapable mother, and I needed to get my act together if I was going to ever do anything, contribute anything of importance in this world. And I felt like I physically wasn't attractive. I had gained weight during the pregnancy, and I wasn't maintaining my body the way I had with working out and so forth. Then I had big scars along my leg after the cancer surgery. And my ego was, really, you're not enough. You're not enough. You're screwing this up. You have to get in here and manage and micromanage all of this to make it work because you are just screwing it up. And that is really the call of perfection. You know, we have this external ideal of what we're supposed to measure up to, or the kind of mother you're supposed to be, or how you're supposed to look, or how much money you're supposed to make. When I got to the place where I could just say, you know what, this is who I am right now, and right now, that's who I'm going to focus on. Those voices came up and smacked me around a little bit. You know, the ego doesn't go quietly, but I could be aware of that and use it as a tool, because it also can be a great motivator and a great protector. And I took charge again. Instead of the ego leading me, I took charge of the thoughts I was going to think and the actions I was going to take. And I really pulled that through meditation and through lots of conscious thought and awareness, and just made conscious decisions. Nope, I'm not going to listen to that. That does not serve me now. I'm going to pick the things that are helpful and go and follow that route. But the ego gets loud, and no, that's normal too. You know, for your listeners, I think it's okay to hear those voices. It just depends on whether you're going to buy into that or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think the idea of the quiet mind is kind of overdone, because you're going to get chatter. It's just a question of how you handle it, I would think, or how you let it go by.
Right.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. There's a bigwig psychologist I interviewed in the book, and his name is Stephen Hayes. And one thing he told me, which really made an impression, was that those inner voices are going to come, and they're going to be loud, and you're going to obsess and ruminate and worry and all these things. And he said, and that's okay, because the minute we stop trying to think of something, they become louder. So if you are saying, oh, I'm not going to think of that cancer anymore, I'm not going to worry about my job anymore, those thoughts just keep coming up, because our brains are developed in a way to remind us of what we're trying to forget. You know, they're tools to help us. They want to remind us of things. They want to teach us. So instead of trying not to think about those things, or those egoic voices, or whatever it is for you, he suggests that you hear them almost like they were noisy kids in the backseat of the car. You acknowledge them, oh, you hear the noise, but you are driving the car, and you just keep going where you want to go. You keep on track. You hear the noise, you acknowledge them, oh, I hear you guys, and then you keep driving toward your target. And that really, that visual image, but also that way of talking to myself, has really helped me. And when those negative thoughts come up now, or those scary voices, or that ego chattering, I hear that. I'm like, oh, there you are. Okay. And then I just keep right on track to where I want to go. You don't have to buy into them.
You mentioned perfectionism, and right away the type A personality popped into my mind. Are you, or were you, a type A personality?
I would definitely define myself as a type A personality, although I'm transitioning, and I'm okay with that, by the way. I'm fine with that.
Good.
I like that, you know, the energy that I have in my life around that. And again, that's a constant process of awareness for me, because when I'm doing things for the sake of control, or some external success, or because somebody else told me to do it, that's really when I need to sit back into my own nature, my own character, and say, okay, are you doing this because this is in line with your values, or your dreams, or what makes you feel good? Are you doing this because you feel like you ought to? And I don't do many of the ought tos anymore. I don't do many of the things that others think I need to be doing. I do what resonates with my value system, and the people I'm living with and care about, and my health, and those other things. But yeah, I'm absolutely a type A. I have just redirected that energy. So instead of trying to measure up to some external reward or ideal, I'm able to sit back and say, okay, let's channel this energy into let's channel this energy into the things that are most meaningful to me.
Type A's can be forgiven, I think, for not having a great sense of humor. Was humor a coping mechanism for you? Was it difficult for you to laugh?
Yeah. No, you know, Yeah, humor is a huge coping mechanism, and it doesn't always come up right away. I get angry too, and I get frustrated, and I get out of alignment, and all these things. But I think I write about some of the crazy experiences in the book that I've had because I honestly feel like my life is a sitcom. The weirdest things happen here. And I think you have to have the ability to stand back and say, wow, okay, so I'm in this experience. Let's just go with it. And laugh about that a little bit. That life can be so absurd. And the ways we play with our brain and our thoughts and push ourselves in directions that we don't really want to be going in the first place, that can get away from us if we can't laugh about it. And I think there is even great humor and opportunity for laughter, even in the moments that are the most difficult. Some silly things happened when I was in cancer treatment, and I think it's a resilient person and a great gift if you can see the humor amid the despair. And there's going to be all of it. We are complicated people having a grand experience, and we're going to experience all of it. The more range of emotions you can experience, the more resilient you'll be.
Prayer is a form of meditation, you could say. Was prayer something that you practiced during this ordeal?
Yeah, and I pray now, but it's not the kind of prayer that you might associate more in a church, or I'm not church going. I'm not aligned with any religion right now. My prayer often is thank you. For me, prayer is a space that I make to consciously speak to the higher energy, and it can be in the car. It can be often a part of my morning ritual now as I get up and I sit on the side of the bed and I say a prayer in the morning. And often my prayer is, thank you for this day. Thank you for all that I have and all that I am. And then I go off, and what it does is allows me to stop, connect with that higher energy, and go forward from a positive place, from one that is empowering and strong, rather than getting up and looking at the clock and thinking about all I have to do. I'm really connected to the bigger part of myself. And yeah, I pray in the car, I pray in the shower, and they're usually just little bits and pieces, and often if I'm asking for anything from the source, I'm asking for insight. Please direct me toward what I need to know, because, we're going to have heartache in this life, and we're going to have challenge, and often it's within those moments that we also find great meaning and great insight and great gifts, and I don't want to miss that. So I rarely ask for the source to take away the bad experience, but I'm hoping that I can have the insight and the patience to notice the gift within.
It sounds like the pieces really are in place for our success. We just have to really take a good look at them, no?
I absolutely agree with that, John. I think it's all here. And in the book, I talk about this because I think we have spent so much energy in this Western culture looking outside of ourselves, or we deny or hide or blame or fix all these flaws and imperfections instead of recognizing that they're part of being a whole person. Embrace all that you are, the flaws and imperfections, because then you have energy to shift into the talents and compassion and love and other great qualities that you also have. And so this is really a practice of turning inside. You don't have to be any different. You are good enough right now to cope with what life serves you. You simply need to turn inside, reconnect with that compassionate place, and that loving place, and that creative place, and expand into each experience as it comes up. And it's there for you. You can do this. I've been all over the country, and I've met hundreds of people now, and I've heard really difficult stories, and these people are transcending those moments with great grace and peace. And I think it's there for all of us.
Well, speaking of those outside messages, messages from the media are especially strong in society. Women are prime targets of these messages. Do you see this getting any better in the future? It seems to be a very powerful force.
Yeah, I think it is a powerful force, and I think it will always be a part of our Western world now because of how it's established. Mm-hmm. But I do see it changing. Shifting, because I think women are wise, and I think it happens with all people to a different degree. But I'm a woman. I'm raising a daughter, so I'm particularly sensitive to this. I think people are shifting. I think all these years, particularly in the 90s and in my contemporary world, you know, all these years of looking for the external reward, the money and the looks and the plastic surgery and the weight loss and all these things, you know, that didn't work for us. We're in recession and our government is struggling and the world is at war and there's poverty. So all the stuff we did to feel good, it didn't work very well. So I feel a real shift. People are going inside and looking at what they have to contribute and looking to ease their stress and pain in their own lives and in their own families' lives. And as women are doing that, they're becoming more aware and conscious to the messages that are out there that are not in alignment with that. You know, they're talking to each other and they're stepping up and saying, no, I am not a size 2, and I'm glad I'm not a size 2. And I don't have to look that way to be smart or to be in a loving relationship. And as that communication and that shift grows, I do think ultimately we are laughing more and more, and we are disregarding more and more the messages that women have to be a certain way to be okay.
And it's so important to practice self-love, and so difficult to do that today. If you're a woman who is who needs that kind of nurturing, where do you start as far as at least just cracking the door a little bit to get to that point?
Yeah, this was a thing for me. You know, self-compassion was something I had to learn, and it's still a part of my practice. Because I really grew up with this mentality that if you're going to be successful, you got to push, 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 push. There's no room for failure. You must achieve, and all these messages. And so every time I'd make a mistake, I fell apart. I felt less than, and I was really hard on myself. And then I read the science behind self-compassion. So everything that I write about has a practical scientific component because I need to use this stuff too, and I want to believe in it, and I want to see it working. And the science of self-compassion is really compelling. Kristen Neff, the psychologist who specializes in self-compassion, says that people are actually more productive. They're more likely to achieve their goals. They have better health when they treat themselves with a little greater care and compassion. And so that resonated with me. I want to achieve my goals. You know, I want to live my dream, and so if being kinder to myself would help me get there, I decided to practice this. And a way to start, and I thought it was corny, I was not going to do this, but I practiced for a week, and it really transformed how I think about life. The way to start is when you're feeling out of sorts, or not enough, or that you just made a big error, pause and take a deep breath, and actually give yourself a hug. Put your arms around yourself and feel the heat in your body and feel the weight of your hands on your shoulders or, you know, against your arms. And what that does is changes our biochemistry in the moment so that it releases a shot of oxytocin, which is our hormone that wants us to nurture, that causes us to nurture other people. And so we begin to care for ourselves. And it also diffuses the stress in the moment so we get some clarity. When you physically feel better, you emotionally start to think clearer. And good things can come from that. And the other thing that I would tell women, just to open the door a crack, like you said, is that if you think that if what you're after is to be a better parent or be a better spouse or be a better writer or worker or CEO or attorney or whatever it is you do in your life, that you know, most of you realize that you cannot do that successfully if you're berating the people in your life. So when my daughter makes a mistake on her math test, she's 6, I don't go over to her and say, you're so stupid, I can't believe you did that. I go over and say, oh, wow, okay, well, we can work on this. We can figure this out. And then we do. So give that gift to yourself. This is not selfishness. This is self-care that will allow you to step into the life that you want, to be a better leader, to be a better parent, to be a better spouse. So taking care of yourself is not selfishness. It's required if you're going to be able to take care of others.
Yeah, words are very powerful, both the words we say to ourselves and as you mentioned, the words maybe we say to our kids. It really leaves an impression. You know, I'm wondering, too, about someone who has, let's say, a disability, someone who can't do these kinds of things that got you back into shape, the household things, the day-to-day stuff. What would you say to somebody who's really basically incapacitated? How do they approach their process of change?
Yeah, and I've had to do things differently throughout my whole life because of the arthritis. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I would say is where this started for me and where it is for me is internal first. You can be mindful, you can be prayerful, you can choose thoughts that are helpful to you without ever moving any part of your body. If your heart is still beating, you have the power to turn within to your heart center and access that energy. And so often what we do physically or in our behavior or in the choices we make, it all starts from within, the way we think about our life, the way we feel about our life, the way we process that. So if you are physically incapacitated, to me that's just, I have curly hair and brown eyes and I also have arthritis. That the way I view my life doesn't change based on how my body moves. So if you feel like you are less than because your body moves in a different way or cannot move at all or do the things in the house that you'd rather be doing or whatever, then check out the beliefs behind that. Check out your limiting beliefs because you can choose thoughts, and so often the thoughts we choose are not helpful. They're degrading and they're limiting. When you start to choose different thoughts, and I've worked with people with MS before, and one woman in particular, when she started thinking about her experience and her contribution, she was fully incapacitated physically, but when she started shifting how she chose to think about that experience, she felt better in her body. And so I think it all starts within. I don't think you have to move physically at all to transform your life and transcend the limitation, because I don't think limitation is physical. I think it's how we view it from our mind and our heart.
I know you believe in the idea of creativity as part of change as well. How can we be creative day to day, not necessarily as a great artist or something of that type, but in our day-to-day practice?
Yeah, I think it starts by thinking differently about creativity. I think we've got this idea that we have to be the next Picasso.
Mm-hmm.
When I pull out my daughter's Play-Doh, I am not looking like Michelangelo, that's for sure. But it's fun and it's playful, and creativity is essential to our lives as adults as well. We know it is to children, it's innate, and it's innate to all of us. We just talk ourselves out of it as we get older. But it's essential because it's the thing we use to develop our brains, to expand our neurons, to develop a flexible mindset, which the bigwigs know is part of maintaining good health and well-being and longevity. And it's essential because we are creative beings. We are expansive beings. And in order to expand into our greatest potential, we need to be able to create something. Now, a daydream is a creation, right? You can draw a picture. You can paint a picture. You can write a poem. You can do it however you want. But what it is at its root is novelty. Do something different today. So try a new recipe. Cook a food you've never cooked before. Drive a new way home from work and be aware of what you're seeing along that route. Take a new approach. The other day I was having problems helping my daughter to remember something in her homework, and so I sang a song around it. And it was a new way of parenting. I'm not a singer, and I don't do that. But it was fun for both of us. It changed the moment and created an experience that we could both remember and grow from. So we need to redefine how we view ourselves. Everyone is creative. It's innate to all of us. There are varying degrees of creativity. But when we can exercise that part of ourselves a little bit each day, not only are we going to have more fun, but life is going to get easier because we will see solutions to things that we now view as problems, and we will see opportunities where we haven't seen them before.
Personally, I like to meditate each day. Do you have a meditation practice? Do you have any special schedule or type of meditation that you do?
Well, I really did before our daughter was born. I was meditating up to an hour a day some days, and I would do a few minutes in the morning and then go in after dinner for another half hour. Now it's pretty much when I can get it. And now that she's school age, I often do a meditation first thing when I get into my office in the morning. I go to my space. I do have a space and a chair, but it's not a shrine. It's in a corner of my office that I use. And I go in there, and before I turn on the computer and start my day, I sit in the chair. And, people get really caught up in this. I love meditation, and I'm so intense. I'm type A. I'm passionate. So if I can do it, you can. But I think we really struggle with rules. I'm doing it right and getting an outcome. And for me, it's not that. For me, I go to my chair, I sit where I'm comfortable with a straight back because I think that helps move the energy. My feet are flat on the floor. Usually I'm barefooted. My hands are in my lap, and I take a few deep breaths, and I just sit, and I sit quietly. And when the thoughts come through, I notice them. I don't analyze. I don't judge. Oh, there's another thought. You need to get quiet mind. I just notice them, and I breathe, and they come in and out. And sometimes I go for 5 minutes. Nowadays, it many times will go longer than that because I'll get caught up in it and finish 20 minutes later or a half hour later. And it's astounding to me. Also, I would say to people, be patient with yourself because we like, a payoff. And with meditation, you may not feel like you're doing it right. You may not feel like there's any positive outcome. But over time, you will notice I have my powers of concentration are so much more profound. I don't get freaked out like I used to get. I don't stress about things in the way I used to. And I'm able to get to that quiet place now, even in the middle of chaos. I can take a deep breath and focus my mind for a split second, which is enough to kind of ease the stress of the moment. And so for me, it's become a real practical tool. But yeah, I try to do it every day for at least 5 minutes, and often it goes a few minutes longer than that now.
Mm-hmm. And while we're talking about practical tools, should people journal? Is that another good mechanism in the process?
Yeah, I've done that throughout my life at different times. I think if that is a tool that works for you, then do it. If you don't like journaling, then find another way to express your thoughts and explore your thoughts. I think the act of contemplation is really interesting. And what that is you pose a question. And often they're big questions like, who am I? Or what is God? They can be really huge, intangible questions. And then you sit quietly and see what answers emerge. And I know people do that in their journal. And it might be weeks or days before you get an answer. But I promise you, there will be insights in those pages that surprise you or that speak to you. And you can do that, during your meditation, or it can be part of your shower. I often, one of my favorite contemplations is, what the heck am I going to do now?
Yeah.
I'm in a real bind, and I'll go take a shower on that. And it's interesting how things emerge. So I think journaling is a good thing. I think meditation, I think one of the fastest and most powerful things is a daily practice of gratitude. I know people are thankful at different times in their life, but build it in, put it in your schedule, do it first thing in the morning or before you go to bed or at your lunch break. And science tells us that the people who actually make a list of the things they're grateful for actually are more productive and accomplish more in their day. And they think it's because they're so motivated. They see the good things they're creating in their lives and the things that are out there, and they're motivated to do more. And so whatever it is, but take a pause to notice what is working, even if it's the smallest thing, and then go to the feeling around that. Really give yourself 30 seconds or a minute to feel the goodness that comes from that, and then go about your day. I think that can be really transformative.
You've coined an interesting term, psychological courage. What is psychological courage?
This is something I learned a lot about. I didn't know anything about it when I decided to write the book, and I learned as I went. And it's fascinating because we all have this, and we're used to thinking of courage in terms of physical courage, like the firefighter that runs into the flames, or moral courage, the whistleblower at the corporation who stands up for what is right. But psychological courage is really the innate courage that we all have to confront the things that aren't working in our lives, or the things that we may need to change, to really look at what is and recognize that, okay, maybe this isn't the relationship I want with my husband, or maybe my casual drinking has become an alcohol problem, or whatever it is. And or you find a lump, you have the courage to call the doctor to make that appointment. So we all have some psychological courage, and we can develop more by practicing, So practice your courage. If you're a person who rarely shares their feelings with your partner, then one time when the stakes are low about a small issue, express how you're feeling. Or if you usually stay quiet, even when things are going on that you don't agree with, raise your hand in the next meeting that you're in. And and share your feelings. Or try something new if you're afraid to do that, or go to a party if that makes you nervous. And build your courage in areas that matter less. And then when the moments come where you have to really confront, okay, this is cancer, or my relationship is not okay, or I'm not making good choices around my job, then you will have the courage to step in there and confront that situation and take action that will move you through it instead of being stuck by it.
Mm. One last question and we'll wrap it up for today. What one idea or suggestion can you leave us with to strengthen our own spiritual practice?
I think our biggest obstacle to these things is that we don't do it. You know, we get busy in our lives and we just don't make the time. And I tell you this with all sincerity because I see it work in my own life. When you build some of these practices into your life, you will have more time. You will be spending your time on the things that drive you and that you're passionate about and that make you feel fulfilled. And then you will have more to give to others. So I think the first thing is make time to do it. Build it in. Write it in your schedule. I write my gratitude practice in my schedule, just like I do my workout and my work meetings. And I build it into my day. Same with meditation. So make time for it and look to do it around the transitions of their day. Usually we have a pause here and there before we begin our day, before we go to bed, around our lunch break. 5 minutes is enough to build in a practice of gratitude or to do a short mindfulness exercise. And the book has a whole bunch of things you can do in 3 minutes or less. And the other thing that we can think about is look at the other transitions from task to task. So every time I go out to the car, before I start the car, I sit there for 1 minute, my hands on the steering wheel, and I do a prayer, or I give thanks, or I do something that helps eases me into the next transition of my day. And it's a way to connect with that deeper energy and that higher energy and to be aware of what I want to create in my life. And it just makes me feel better.
And your website, where would we find that?
Yes, go to imperfectspirituality.com, www.imperfectspirituality.com, and you can link to the book there, or it's at Amazon and Barnes & Noble and bookstores near you.
All right. Well, you bring a great can-do message. I want to thank you so much for being with us to share and invite you to come back to be with us again. Tell us what you're up to.
I would love that, John. Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. And I will send you links to the show at your Connect email if you don't mind. So if that's okay, you can hear what's going on. All right.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you again and have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you again.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.